Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're going to talk about the changes or lack thereof in the current update that was meant to be coming for February 14th. So it's, as it's listed, changes to cards in February 14th. Nothing much to say there. In February 14th maintenance there won't be changes to cards, costs and abilities. The very first line in the sentence explains basically what's going on. There'll also not be any new bans or one card restrictions in the unlimited format. So basically nothing is changing between the last couple of weeks and the at least next few weeks. So rotation, they just go through and they talk about how really nothing's been dominating in rotation. All the decks are floating around a 50% to 1% kind of win rates and usage rates, all being pretty balanced, which in my personal experience has been that case for the last week. The first week definitely saw way more Daria than probably ever, like 90% of my matches were Daria. As the weeks progressed, they've got less and less frequent. We're seeing a lot more variations, a lot more counter decks. We've seen Vengeance Blood, Sword, all those decks start to come back to prominence, which counter Daria quite nicely, along with dealing with Dragon quite effectively. So overall, I think the meta is in that diverse category at the moment. Shadow's dropped off a bit, Dragon's definitely dropped off a bit. Forest is probably the least lacking deck in this entire expansion so far. Aggro Forest is great, but outside of that for rotation, there really isn't that much that I've seen be great on ladder. So, in my personal opinion, I agree that no changes were really necessary. A lot of people disagree, a lot of people are really upset with no Daria changes and those sort of things, and personally, I don't see it being an issue. I think Unlimited definitely needed something, like, at least from the few times I played in it. Adamy's running rampant, although it does brick extremely hard through my testing. We've also seen a lot of Daria and D-Shift decks. D-Shift's kind of dropped off a bit, but Daria's definitely more prominent in Unlimited than it is in rotation. But I think that's always a problem with rotation. There isn't much you can really do. You've basically got to play to your strengths in Unlimited. You can't just kind of go in with any random deck. You want to be playing the best possible cards you can to edge out your opponent, especially in the Master category where most people are playing. So other than that, there really isn't too much to speak on other than just a few stat things here. There are currently 11 deck types with 51% win rates. That's in Unlimited. That's pretty impressive. I mean, to have 11 deck types with 51% win rates, that's amazing. Data taken from high-ranking Unlimited matches in the early January revealed that the first player win rates was 52.3%. However, this has dropped to 51.4% as of early February. So, going first, not as good as going first last time before the changes. I think that's mainly in part to the changes to Blood. Blood obviously raising that kind of going first win mechanic a lot more. Although going first is still an advantage, it's a lot less of an advantage now by about 1%, which is a reasonable drop-off when you're looking at stats like that. Future changes to card. We routinely review match data in the Shadowverse team. In order to maintain a great game environment, we change costs and effects, boost number of vials, you know, all the pretty standard stuff, honestly. Card changes targeted at rotation with the design of one card restrictions and bans for Unlimited, all fair. Any future changes to card costs and effects will be announced in advance, and the changes will generally be made the next day. So the below schedule is March 7th for an announcement and March 8th for changes, and then March 27th for an announcement and March 28th for changes. Of course, those can change, and they could do stuff earlier with some form of hotfix if anything becomes a major problem. But I think for at least the next, 3 weeks-ish, we're not going to see any major changes. I think the meta is at a point now where it's balanced itself out, which I think is good. The problem I've been seeing lately with a lot of these changes is that people want changes too quickly. You don't have time for the meta to diversify. So, of course, week 1, people are going to use the strongest decks possible, hence why we saw Daria really take off. Then people are going to start teching in the next week to start countering Daria, which is when you'll start seeing a shift in a meta and it'll start to drop a bit. Of course, long term, once you get to about week 3 to week 4, you'll see it really stabilize, and that's when we reach what I'd consider to be a stable meta. And that's where you're not going to see any innovative change until decks are changed out, basically. You might see 1 or 2 decks pop up, but you won't see anything that really shakes the meta from there. So expect that probably about late this week, start of next week, the meta will have stabilized and we'll know basically every single thing that will be top, and we won't see that change at least until the next lot of changes. I wouldn't be surprised if it's already stabilized enough now with how decks are that we won't see any major changes. Of course, I understand, like I mentioned before, a lot of you guys are probably going to be unhappy with this. Personally, I don't see the issue. I haven't had any real bad matches. I've played a couple hundred matches in the last probably 2 weeks, and overall it's just been fine. I mean, Daria was, like I said, running rampant a little in the first week. After that, I've seen a massive drop off on it, and really I've seen maybe 1 or 2 Daria in every, I don't know, 10-15 games probably. So really it's not as big a concern as it once was, and I think people really were making much bigger deal out of it than probably need be, honestly. People just want to hate on whatever's the strongest deck, and while I do still believe Daria is one of the strongest decks, it does have natural counters. Like I mentioned, Blood, Sword, even Dragon decks can tech things into counter pretty well. You've got plenty of removal. Summit Haven does a pretty good job if you've got the right kind of build. So it's just not, it's not impossible. Hopefully guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe. You can give me your thoughts in the description below. I'm sorry, in the comments below, and you'll find all the links in the description below for anything important, including this news update. So I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.